and welcome back to Girl Ascending. So today we are going to be talking about the full moon, which is probably the most well-known phase in the lunar cycle, and even people who don't really track or follow the lunar cycle often find themselves drawn to the full moon and its power. So when we're going to look at the full moon, we also want to think how closely the full moon parallels to nature. And actually all full moons are given their own specific names, which are tied to our ancestors and are really deeply rooted in agriculture, in plotting often the wheel of the year, or at least the cycle of the seasons. So when we're thinking about the full moon, we've got the January full moon, which is often called the wolf moon, the old moon, or the moon after Yule. And if you're familiar with the pagan wheel of the year, Wiccan wheel of the year, then you will obviously know the term Yule. But this idea of the wolf moon, of this being a very full, bright moon in the sky, and often people talk about the full moon and wolves as if there's some kind of deep connection, that idea of lycanthropy, but actually it's nothing to do with werewolves. It's literally the fact that the moon is so full, so bright, that wolves are able to call to each other, to connect with each other and communicate with each other. So then going into February, the February full moon is often called the ice moon or the hunger moon, and obviously the idea of this is that February is one of the coldest seasons, so we're really feeling that icy blast and that time to really hunker down in the cold. And then the March full moon is called the storm or the worm moon. And we have this idea of storms and worms, moving things, clearing things, getting things out of the way as we're moving forward into spring. And as we're coming into April, the full moon in April is called the pink moon, which gives an idea of floral displays, this idea of new life. Obviously the moon itself is not quite pink, but it's definitely that idea of the beauty of nature as it comes into spring. And then we have the May full moon, which is often called the hare moon. Hare as in the animal, because obviously now we're coming into spring proper, baby animals are being born, and it's just a beautiful time of new life and fresh starts. And then as we're coming into June, we have the Dyad moon, which is very appropriate in Celtic terms, because Dyad actually translates as pair. So we're obviously coming now into the season of Gemini, which is where it gets this name. And then moving forward into July, we're coming now into the hay moon or the wart full moon. Wart, not something that you would find on your finger, but rather the idea of herbalism and drying herbs and hay and really kind of feeling that heat of the sun. And then as we come into August, we have the full moon known as the corn or the dispute moon. And now this is really the idea of pushing into harvest time, where we're gathering up our corn, but also the idea of the dispute moon. So we're putting away, all arguments, quarrels, as we're moving forward into the next stage of the year. And then the September moon, full moon, is actually called the harvest moon, sometimes the vine moon. So we have those very clear parallels of what's actually happening at this time of the year. And then as we move forward into autumn proper itself, we have the October full moon, which is called the blood or the shedding moon. So we have that really visceral idea of letting go of all life as we're now coming into the winter months. And then the November full moon is called the tree moon, or sometimes it's called the trading moon. So trading is a Native American term of taking stock, basically. So we've got this idea that we're coming towards the end of the year, and we're rooted deeply, and we're kind of getting ready to hibernate, as it were, to last out the colder months. And then as we come into December, we have the oak moon, and this ties very closely to Celtic pagan origins, where we have this idea of the ending of the year. And in Celtic pagan history, they would have a tree calendar. So rather like we have our Romanic monthly calendar, they would track time by trees. So we've got this idea of an oak standing firm, standing strong, able to withstand all that the winter may throw at it, and then be able to come out ready for spring as we go into the new year, the next season. So the full moon is really that pinnacle point of the lunar cycle where no matter where we are in the year, no matter what religion you follow, you can always look into the sky and see it as that big focal point. So this is a time of really heightened energy, and depending on how you want to use it, it can be a bit frantic, a bit manic, but you really want to translate it into something where you are celebrating. You know, you want to examine how far you've come, and you want to also release and let go of all of that excitement and that energy as well, because when we're talking about the lunar cycle and the importance of tracking our progress, we also want to make sure that we are celebrating as well how far we've come, because we are now at the halfway point. So we want to be able to say we've made it, we're here, and we're looking forward to then moving into the next phase of the lunar cycle as well. So when we're thinking about this phase of the lunar cycle, what we really want to be aware of is 4 things, and that is illumination, examination, completion, and release. So under the light of the full moon, we're obviously able to see everything brightly. We're able to see how far we've come, what's gone well, what hasn't, what blocks have come up, what's worked really well, and then we're able to examine that more closely so that we can apply it better in the future. And we're able to celebrate this idea of completion, that we've got to this point of the lunar cycle, and then we also want to release. So as well as releasing anything negative, anything toxic, we also want to release with gratitude so that we can then call that abundance back into our lives in the future. And if we think about the positioning of the moon in the sky as the full moon, it means that the Earth, the moon and sun are all in alignment. So Earth and sun on opposite sides of the moon, which gives this idea of a pathway. And this is really what we want to do next when we're thinking about moving from the full moon into the last phases of the lunar cycle, which are known as the waning moons. So we want to see that pathway clearly as to where we're going to go next. And we want to be looking back to our new moon intentions, the intentions that we set at the start of the lunar cycle, to think about how they're now paralleling to where we are now, and if they're still in alignment with what we're truly looking for. So it's a really exciting time, lots of high energy, lots of positivity and celebration, but we also want to be kind to ourselves, have some introspection, maybe have a ritual bath, and really take time for self-care as well. So I hope that you will join me in our final video on the lunar phases, which are of course the waning moons. Please click the notification button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye.